No, Ian, to answer your question, no. I don't know, about 5 years ago or something like that. See, I'm all about Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, greatest entertainer who ever lived. And, a little birdie told me one time that there's this guy named Jon Cotner who's going around, inferring he's Elvis. So I simply looked into it, because that's what I do, to make sure nobody's making a mockery of, Elvis. And I joined his forum so I could keep an eye on him. And, I didn't say anything bad about the guy, publicly or anything else, until about 9 months ago. But I never put nothing in his forum that was derogatory, and I never posted anything derogatory about him. And if anybody PM'd me, I tried to keep it civil, and I never said anything derogatory about the guy. Which is why it amazes me that he's been on my case for years. But, I just was keeping an eye on him to see what it was all about, to get an idea of what he was doing, what he was saying, and who he was and who he was about, so that's why I joined his forum, And then, of course, he banned me from his forum, and then he came in my room and attacked me. He came in this room here and attacked me in the room, and actually Sun and Moon were in the room at the time. They remember. My old admin Bree was in the room, who was a good friend of mine. There was a lady named Carla in the room who has turncoat. She is now a friend of John's, but she was an admin in my room at the time. And I had an admin named Marty who was in the room at the time. Right before John came in, Marty left. Marty had just left. So it was Bree, Carla, and me, and Moon and John were in the room, and Nan was in the room. There's quite a few people that come here now that were in the room then at that time. And I let him get on the mic. I let him explain himself, and I said, you tell us who you are or what you're about, because you're not Elvis. You weren't born on January 8th, 1935. You weren't in the Army in 1958 to 1960. It's all a joke. He got on the mic and he tried to say he was. And he was trying to be civil. So at that point, being the guy that I am, and the fact that I'm trying to be calm and no drama, I tried to make bygones be bygones. I figured, turn the other page, turn the other cheek, so to speak, Be like Christ, as he would say. As he likes to infer all the time, to try to turn the other cheek, be a better person. So that's what I did. And, he said, you can get back on the forum. So at that point, I got back on the forum. And unfortunately, Rustywells had been banned. So what I did is, he told me that I could come back on the forum, but I had to pick a new nick to get on the forum with, because Rustywells was no longer able to get on there. So I chose Vince Everett as my nick. Vince Everett. So that's the nick that I went back on. And here again, I wasn't there to cause trouble. I was just getting to figure out what he was all about a little further. And like I said, I wasn't being a spy or nothing like he would try to tell you. I just wanted to know what he was all about. Just like if I had a forum and he was in there, he'd want to know what I was all about. Is he good for Elvis? Is he trying to cause trouble? Is he being a problem? That's what you'd want to know. So, unbeknownst to me, Sean One, who draws cartoons and stuff, like I said, he's about the size of a munchkin. He draws cartoons. He drew a cartoon of a guy named Eli Culbertson. Dale Eli Culbertson. And, at one time, Dale Eli Culbertson was on a TV show in 1974. And on that show, he sang an Elvis song. And he was wearing a white jumpsuit type thing, like Elvis wore. But he had a fur collar, which kind of looked kind of wild, A little bit eccentric, A little bit too much like the village people, so to speak. So the cartoon was actually making fun of the costume that was in this video, And if you've seen the picture in the cartoon, it was actually pretty well drawn, and it was funny. I hate to give Sean one credit, but he drew a pretty good cartoon. I made a comment to it, and my actual comment was, it was like, "Hey Dale, the village people called. They said, sorry, you won't be able to join the group. You're a little too gay for what we're looking for." That's what I said, the village people, of all people, saying he's a little too gay for their group. You can't join them. I thought it'd be funny, and a lot of people laughed. So, a couple, back then, before, Rustywells was an evil word, and they weren't trying to be fake and phony, and they thought it was funny, they laughed, Got a lot of comments about laughing about it. And so I got done, I closed out my post, and I left, and I went to pick up my son, which is about an hour away, and I came back. And by the time I got back, Jon Cotner had banned me from his forum for a second time. For that, I don't know, is that the reason? I don't know. But I made a joke about Dale Eli Culberson, and then John bans me. So I just thought it was kind of ironic. I don't know. and that's all, guys. That is the complete true story about how everything has went down. And like I said, this was all started about 5 years ago. 4 or 5 years ago. I don't know at this point. I got the date somewhere, but I think it's like 5 years ago when I first got involved in this. And here we are now. And I hadn't said nothing. You could see every PM I ever wrote to anybody on record about anybody, to anybody, and I didn't say one off-color word about Jon at all. I had my opinions on him, but I didn't want Rustywells to be known as the guy who talks bad about somebody he don't like, So I wanted to try and be the bigger person, but after getting attacked, because he came in this room not only the first time, but then he came back and attacked the room again. And at that point, Finney, who was a great person and a great singer, was my admin. Now at the time, Finney thought that Jon was his friend, and I knew Jon and Finney were close, and I still had Finney as my admin. And I don't know, maybe that made Jon mad and he felt deceived or something. I don't know. He's a little bit paranoid, he is. Jon's paranoid, and so is Sean one and the rest of the sheep. So, but anyhow, they made a deal, Jon and Finney. I think he said, "Hey, you're an admin in Rusty's room, and I can't get in there because he changed it. Only admins can do anything in the room. He's made it so I can't become an admin and attack his room, because the first time he came in, I didn't have it set up where if you knew my code, you could come in as an admin and you could attack my room. But I've since fortified it. You have to be an admin and have the code and such, to come in here and attack the room and stuff. So he made a deal with Finney. He said, "Give me your login codes." And that's what he did, Finney, being a good person who trusted him and thought Jon was in the up and up and is this good person he claims to be, he gave him his login code as an admin. So what happened was, Finney came in the room, and before Finney was there, though, Sean 1 was in the room. And at that time, Sean 1 used to come in my room once in a while. Now, I know now why he used to come in my room. He used to come in and spy. But he used to sing a song here and there. He was in my room many times, probably about 4 or 5 times at least. And he'd come in and he'd sing. He was decent, he wasn't that bad, wasn't as bad as he is now. But, he used to try and sing well, and he'd come in my room and sing a song or two. And he was very, he didn't cause no trouble. He was almost a kind guy, he would come in and be cool and leave and come back and whatever. But he came in my room, so I seen Sean 1 in the room. And then Finney jumped in the room. And what was odd was Finney was an admin. So he came in the room, and Finney always had a way of greeting the room. You'd say hello to the room, or hi Rusty, or, whatever. And he didn't say nothing. So I said, I'm looking at Finney, and he didn't say nothing. He's an admin. He always says something. And I said, "Finney, how are you?" And he puts hi in the room, H-I. Well, that wasn't right. I'm like, something's wrong, you know. Finney's acting goofy. I got Sean in the room. Finney's acting goofy. I've been banned from Jon's forum. And then, you know, here comes a Nick called Nurse Bloodsworth Betty. Well, I know that's Betty from his forum. I know that's, you know, Betty. If you know anything about Jon's forum, that's Betty. You know, and she's an outspoken. I won't say what I'm going to say, but she's outspoken. Anyways, brainwashed like the rest of them. And she came in and she left after about 10 seconds. So I knew at that point she was casing the joint, you know, checking out to see who was in here. And so I knew at that moment something was up. So I immediately went behind Sean 1's Nick and I banned it. And I went behind Finney's Nick and I banned it. And I went behind, you know, any Nick that was in the room that I didn't recognize, and I banned it. And then all of a sudden, like 4 people pop in the room, like machine gun, man, just 4 people. And they're all people that I know are Jon people. So I'm like, I know what's up now. They think I'm stupid or something, you know? Like any fool could have told that, you know? So I immediately went behind and banned all those Nicks. And as soon as Sean 1 got ready to take Mike, I bounced them all at one time. Just bounced them all out. Man, they got so pissed off. They actually opened a room. Jon opened a room. And they just were sitting there just upset. I mean, at one point it was posted. They were just screaming and yelling. And Sean 1 got on Mike and he was just going off. And talking about how Finney betrayed him, and Finney told me and gave me the heads up. Finney didn't say a word, man, guys. Finney didn't have to say a word, you know. I know that Jon's used to dealing with people with the mentality of about a 10-year-old, you know, who has no idea what the heck they're doing. They don't have a mind of their own. You know, Jon's used to people who are yes people, you know, who do whatever he says and think whatever he thinks, and they don't have a mind of their own. So he's used to dealing with those people. But see, I actually, you know, and I'm not taking too much credit for it because, like I said, you know, any moron could figure out that, you know, all these people that are Jon's people bouncing in my room all at one time aren't there to say hello, Rustywells. So, you know, I just did what I had to do to save the room and make it okay, you know. I don't want drama. So I bounced them all out. So they go over there and Jon opens his goofball room, you know. I don't know what it's called, Elvis Family and Friends Room of Stupidity and Dumbness. I don't know. Yeah, like he's family. He's family and no Elvis person. Closest he's ever been to Elvis's family is standing outside the gates of Graceland going, oh, I wonder what's going on there. That's about as close as he's come to family. But anyhow, he opens his room and Sean 1 gets on there and he cries and whines like a little baby. And he talks all kinds of stuff. And you know, I felt bad for Finney because even though Finney had all, you know, kind of, you know, did something that wasn't, I understood why he did it because, like I said, he was being deceived and he thought, you know, Jon was this good guy. And, you know, I don't think he thought it through. And you know, I hold no grudge against Finney. I love Finney. He's a great guy. You know, he just, you know, was being betrayed by, you know, Jon, as always, like everybody else is. And they tore him a new one, man, I'll tell you. What Sean 1 said about Finney, I tell you, I felt bad. I honestly did. I actually told Finney later on, it was, I apologized that he had to take that grief. You know, even though what he did, it wasn't cool to me at the time, you know, it wasn't fair what they said to him, you know. I got news for you. You know, I don't know much about Finney personally as far as his person, how big he is or all this, but my cat could beat Sean 1's butt, man. I'll tell you right now. Sean 1, he's like, I'm a 5th degree black belt. You're a 5th degree black belt. Yeah, you went to Walmart and bought 5 belts and you put them on. That's how 5th degree you are. 5th degree black belt. Yeah, whatever. You know. He sits there. They opened his room. John opened his room. I should say Goof opened his room like 2 days ago. And, they think I go in his room all the time. I haven't been in his room since he banned me. I've never been in his room since he banned me. And that's been years. But every time they open in his room, I'm telling you guys, I promise you, go in his room next time he opens, and everybody that's in his room is me. Anybody that says anything negative about John is Rustywells. Anybody that goes in his room is Rusty, and says something about John that they don't like, it's me. A voice who comes in my room all the time and sings great. They actually accused him of being Rustywells. Yep, Mr. Voice. They accused him of being Rustywells. Okay, Rusty Pipe. Mr. Tone Deaf Rusty. And then they put a name in the room they think is my name. My real name or something. And, maybe they should decipher that real name they think is my real name a little bit better. They should decipher it a little better, and maybe they shut their mouth. But anyhow, they put put personal information in the room. Yeah. Maybe if they were as smart as they think they are, they might shut their mouth because they don't know who they're messing with. There you go, see? But your middle name is Baron, right? That would be you. Okay, gotcha. That's a good name, man, I'll tell you. You probably do realize that was going to be Elvis's son's name if he had a son, so that's a very good name to have. They accused me of being John Barron, because John Barron, was a guy who could sing good, and posted some songs on YouTube or something, and he came in my room quite a few times. I had a conversation with him in the room, but somehow I'm him. They still to this day believe I was him. It don't matter, And if you guys listen to any of his songs, he's 10 times better than John. But, somehow the sheep being tone deaf that they are, they like to think that he's, me, and, like I said, that at one time they were accusing me of being Irish Winter, no offense to Irish Winter, but the guy, I don't know what the guy's done. What has Irish Winter done? He posted a couple videos, he said a couple things about John. I have sat here over and over and over and explained to you guys what kind of goof he is, and somehow Irish Winter is, on the top of their head. But when they open the room, Rustywells. John Barron, yeah, he's been in this room. He's sung quite a few times in here. Actually, he has. But like I say, John Barron is a great singer. From what I've heard, he sings great. His picture's on YouTube. By his Nick. He's an old guy. He's an older guy. He's probably, from the picture, he looks to be in his 70s. He sounds to me like a extremely good, an ETA or something from the past or something. I don't know. We're talking about Jon Cotner. I haven't heard him. You ain't missing nothing. Hey, we're thinking alike. Okay. Well, anyhow, guys, I'm going to cut it here. Like I said, it just goes back. I don't know how many people have been accused of being, honest to God, it's probably up to 50 or 100 at this point. Because like I said, anybody that goes in his room, that doesn't like him, just if you guys don't believe me, just make up a nick and go, the next time he opens his room, as long as you guys put some earplugs in, because you don't want to hear him talk, go in his room, and you sure as heck don't want to hear him sing. He's so out of tune, it's unbelievable. But, next time you go in his room, if you do, just say something negative about John. And see how quick or how many people call you Rustywells. These people are so paranoid, it's not even funny. Jon Cotner actually believes that, somehow this evil government entity, this, New World Order government, conspiracy theory crap that he comes up with, they're actually looking for him and seanone. Because the world cannot go on without knowing who Jon Cotner the goof is and who seanone his lapdog is. Because, if we don't know that, the world's going to end, man. We really got to know who these people are. Because these two insignificant buttheads are the answer to the world, man. Like I could give a hoot who these two goofs are. First of all, Jon Cotner is the dirt on my shoes, and lapdog seanone is beneath him. So you do the math. When I get off the mic, I'm going to go take a Jon Cotner and I'm going to wipe my seanone, okay? Just so you know. So with that, I'm going to say good night to everyone. God bless you all for being here. So thank you, God bless you, and tomorrow we will be open at the same time. We will be open at the same time, same place. Thank you all. Good night. We'll see you tomorrow.